badly needed and long overdue, a controversial podcast about Colorado Springs. It's controversial because it makes sense. I'm your host, Nick Raven, and joining me virtually, of course, as always, to my left, it's your right on the screen, but is my co-host and navigator and TikToker and stander-upper, Emily Lewis. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, Nick. I'm very excited for this episode.
Yes.
Talking to Liz Rosenbaum about PFAS.
And water rights
water.
And stuff.
Hang on, the importance of water.
Yeah, I adjusted your rectangle a little bit so that you're in the frame. I've been adjusting the... There were some technical snafus that we ran into in this episode, so just a heads up. The audio listeners, you're probably not going to... There'll be like an abrupt thing, maybe. But she lost her connection not that long into the episode, and we just kind of let it hang, and then we came back to it. So I haven't edited it yet, but it will make sense. And if you're watching on video, there'll be a transition. I'll figure it out.
It's fine.
It's fine. It'll be great. But yes, you're absolutely right. We had a great conversation with Liz. So, let's go ahead and talk to her.
Okay, let's talk to her.
Let's go talk to it. Liz Rosenbaum, Water Warrior. Here we go.
Dun, dun, dun.
Ba-ba-bum. So this is the part where we interview you. How are you doing today?
Doing good today. I have no idea how this morning went by so fast.
Yeah. Usually it's sleep.
Weekend. That's what it's supposed to do.
Yes. And then Monday comes around and it's like, what the heck's going on?
Tuesday, super slow. Sunday, you're like, cut it out. Slow down.
Yeah, exactly. Let me live. Weekend. Stop that. So, yes. Liz, can you introduce yourself and what, your roles are? Because you are a water warrior, that's for sure, watching this podcast. But how does that break down?
Right. So, I unknowingly became the water advocate in the Fountain Valley area. In 2016, it was announced that our water was contaminated, and it had been for decades. Mm-hmm. And after a big community meeting, and after the November elections, because I had been running for the county commissioner seat, my husband was awesome. 11:30 at night, he's like, well, you didn't win, but look at all the people who supported and voted for you. And then he fell asleep. And I'm up all night going, oh my God, you're right. What am I going to do about this water? So I started, monthly meetings, third Thursday at 6:30, and started off in my living room. Friends and neighbors came over and I made a lot of spaghetti, and it just went from there. So since then, we've got national funding, statewide 6 pieces of legislation. And I get into these meetings and, there's been, if someone would have asked, hey, Liz, this is going to be big. This is going to be more than the year. I would have maybe set up a nonprofit or it's so time consuming.
Sure. Yes. You're doing a lot. You're going to conferences and doing
a lot.
Things. You kind of your video froze up, but that's okay. As long as you can hear us, you're fine. As long as you can hear us, you're fine.
I was
introducing myself.
Yeah, you were introducing. Let me introduce yourself.
No.
I don't know. Yeah. So I started the Water Coalition 6 years ago in 20.
Hang on, I'm resizing you still.
That's okay. In 2016, and having no idea that this would be literally a forever thing. And we need to have it as a nonprofit, but I have no idea how to do that.
That's
no idea.
Really, really hard and a giant pain in the ass.
Yes.
I run one. It sucks. It sucks so much all the time.
Yeah, and I think we've done better by just being a group of people with a name and a Facebook page than anything else. Like, they're like, what is your title? And I'm like, coalition leader. Like, whoa. How many people? I'm like, 300. You know, that's how big my email list is.
There you go.
I'm like, we're 300 people.
Yep.
That's a lot.
And that's the thing. And it's easier to get some things done than it is to, you know, try to put together a whole freaking nonprofit. Because then you have all these rules that you have to deal with, and it's just a giant pain in the butt.
Right. And like in June, I went to the third national PFAS conference, because we missed 2 years because of COVID. And I got a scholarship for most of the plane ticket, and the plane ticket, and then a couple other things. So then I just put out to, you know, the Fountain Valley Clean Water Coalition. I was like, hey, who wants to like chip in? And I had people donate almost $200. So that paid for like, all my extras, right? Like stopping at the local coffee shop with the other coalition leaders from around the US. And, you know, some of them didn't get, you know, extra funding. I was like, hey, let my friends in Fountain Valley treat you to a cup of coffee. So it was really cool to do all those extra little things and just know that it was supported by my community here. You know, $10, $20. Somebody gave me $50. Another gal, she now lives in California or New York. She sent me $100.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this is so cool. Like all the extras that you want to do when you're at a conference, like stopping by, you know, getting a magnet as a souvenir to remember that I was there, or extra food for dinner because I was still hungry, or extra food for breakfast, and just all those little extras you don't think about. So my parking at the Denver airport. Driving up to Denver.
Driving up to, I did that. I did corporate work for Best Buy, and the first couple times they would have me flying out of Denver. And I was in a car that I was very anxious about getting all the way to Denver. So, and then having it park there and then not knowing if it would start when I got back, you know, the next day. So Liz, are you a Springs native? Like, have you been in the region long? Like, what brought you to Colorado?
Sort of.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've lived in Colorado 22 years, which is the longest I've ever lived anywhere. Because I'm from Iowa, grew up there, but I left when we were 19 or 20. Dan joined the Army. And so that's how we got out of Iowa, lived in Georgia and then Germany and then here.
We're in Germany.
And we lived on Ramstein Air Force Base.
Oh, yeah. We lived in Oberusel.
And then the Army left us here and we're like, oh, this is amazing. So Dan never re-enlisted and we just stayed.
Why not? We had, my dad was Air Force and he got out to Falcon, which is now Schriever. So, so he got out, and so we've been here, and this was his home before, and this is my home now. Right.
But I love it when people complain about all the people moving here, and then, you know, a little while later, they'll be like, I love the military.
Yeah.
I hate all the people moving here. I was like, make up your mind.
Yeah.
That is how literally all of us in the Fountain Valley area got here.
Yeah. Right off Carson.
And we are, you know, a very transient community, meaning we move a lot. The military moves families every 3 years. It's why we're so easy to contaminate in the Fountain Valley area. 5 water contaminations have happened here since the 70s. People are like, why does this keep happening? I'm like, we're easy targets. We don't have a hospital south of Platte. There's 7 north of Platte. Same population, right?
You got a Matthews VU
very
clinic.
Limited doctors. You know, half the population moves every 3 years, and it's got an explosion of population. So Widefield School District 3 is 60 years old, and the population the school district is now is going to double in 10 years.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And then
absurd.
You know, the military is huge for jobs here, and then it's just it's funny to me because I was like, y'all didn't like me 22 years ago. You'll be fine with the new people who get here. It'll be fine.
Right?
It'll be fine. You want the military here because of jobs and careers, and it's fine.
Yeah, we've talked in previous episodes about like how the city exploded as the city was luring all the feds to come and be like, hey, build everything military here. So Camp Carson, the Air Force Academy, Peterson, stuff like that. And then it blows up the city. That is our economy, essentially. And then and then it's Peterson that's then all this firefighting foam that really, I think, really tips the scales, especially where you're at, about water contamination. And I know we're going to talk about contamination, absolutely, but another big broad thing is just water rights altogether, because we're spreading out so thin and getting so big. So I'd like you to kind of like emphasize here, like the fact that we're going to run out of water if we're not more responsible with our freaking water.
Yes.
Yeah, water's important.
So one of the very first things I always tell people is that we are first source water drinkers, meaning we have first dibs. We are not drinking water that has been processed through somebody else's wastewater poop factory. The first source. Above all else, it is our responsibility to not screw it up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can we at least do that? Somewhere along the line, but the water that we have here goes through over 800 wastewater filtration water treatment plants before it hits the Gulf of Mexico. And we've already screwed it up. We being people, people are always involved in this, right? And it's important to understand that the military is sort of at fault, but not really, because the chemical manufacturers lied. And, my son's in the military, my husband, uncles, grandpas, nieces, nephews, grandma. We have a huge military connection here. And when you're in the military, they hand you a SOP, standard operating procedure, and they're like, here, go do this. So then you do. You don't question it. This is what you do. Right. And here with the firefighting foam, the chemical manufacturer said it's a surfactant, which means it changes the surface of water. So it's like soap, because soap is also a surfactant. Well, it's not like soap. You can't just say, well, it's a surfactant like soap, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It's not fine. It puts out jet fuel fires. Something that puts out jet fuel fires cannot be good for us to drink. Right. And so the EPA has done advisories, which are not enforceable. So they've recently dropped the advisories for PFOA, which is Teflon, and PFAS, which is like a water repellent. And those are ingredients in toxic firefighting foam, which is PFH little XS. So the EPA is not making a decision on toxic firefighting foam, Class B. It puts out fossil fuel fires. It's different than the stuff that gets put on forest fires out here. Different stuff. Yep, totally different. And so then you have like a fossil fuel versus an organic, like a tree is burning, different type of fuel. So, because that was one of the things I asked you. I was like, oh crap, is it all that fire that we've had? Nope, different stuff. And then there's also a different firefighting foam that puts out chemical fires too. So there's like 3 different types of fire suppression that they use. It's kind of crap that I've learned, right? I should be like, I need like an honorary degree in organic chemistry. Like I bought the book Organic Chemistry for Dummies. And even then I'm like, I got this.
Yeah. It's like I could have written this book.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, the things you become an expert in, that you had no intentions of ever becoming an expert in.
Yeah, like I have other things I could do, crochet.
Right.
What was your life before you started getting into water management and stuff? Like, was this something that you were kind of passively understanding, or was it really when the Fountain Valley stuff started happening that you were like, man, I should really understand water?
I've always been an activist. I've always been an activist in some point in my life for everything. When we lived in Germany, the base housing playgrounds were all of a sudden deemed not safe for home daycare providers. But when we closed at 5:00, our children could go out and play in the playground.
Oh, regulatory.
So that was one of my first where I rallied the troops and said, hello, we freaking live here and our kids play there.
Troops.
And the kids that we watch play on that playground when they get home, but they can't play on it when like I'm babysitting them, like as a professional and getting paid. And all these kids are military kids and support staff. And it's like the playgrounds are only unsafe from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. unless we do extended care. And then we can't go out there. That was one of the first things I did.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And then we moved, right? And then we moved to Colorado and I started, we had a unit support group that was going pretty good. And then I took that over and then did really well with it. And I was the liaison over September 11th, 2001. And I got a Commander's Award for Public Service, like the third highest civilian award.
Awesome.
For organizing all the military spouses, like this is what's happening. They would call me. The commander would, say, hey, this is what you can tell everybody. So I did that. And then I was a teacher and the environmental teacher.
The environmental teacher. I don't remember that growing up.
Yeah, one of those clubs. And so worked with the kids, and during locker clean out, we noticed that kids were just, students were just throwing things away rather than taking them home. So I just started collecting everything outside my social studies classroom. And I was like, oh yeah, paper, pens, give it to me. I'll hand it out next year. And then some of my students who I'm still friends with were like, let's have a club and do this. I'm like, hey, that's a great idea. So that's still growing strong. 15 years later, other teachers have taken it on. I got laid off in 2009. Apparently I was too mouthy.
Oh, no, Liz.
Impossible.
Oh my God. One of my teacher evaluations said, great job bringing in supplemental information about women that's not in the textbook. And I'm like, when was I supplemental information?
Don't talk about women's rights here. All our books are approved by men in the Capitol, so don't be pushy on that women's libs stuff.
They had a committee and everything.
Yeah, the men don't approve of the suffrage movement still. Okay,
and I'm not going back to teaching. Yeah, I'm not. That was 2009. I'm done. Thanks. I have a degree in education. I know how to. You can't just take somebody and be like, oh, history, you should be a teacher. No, like how many years I spent learning how to teach children, like Florida. Don't move to Florida.
Oh, no.
Move to Colorado. We understand how teaching works. We don't pay you, but we understand how teaching works.
We know what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Just make sure you can do it on no wages.
Yeah. So breaking complicated things down to a level of understanding, I've got a knack for it. And a lot of it just has to do with me going, I still don't get it. Break it down. Break it down again. If I don't get it, nobody else gets it. So, and then just being insistent upon needing to understand it. And so by having monthly meetings, third Thursday at 6:30 at the fire station, Security Fire Station 1, or the library, or Peaks and Pines Brew in Fountain when they opened up, which they were able to open because Fountain was filtering their water. So that was so exciting to be at that city council meeting when that small business got their business license, knowing the water is like amazing and it's filtered and they're doing so well here. So we've had quite a few of our meetings there. I haven't had meetings because of COVID every month, but we do kind of emails, phone calls of some of us main ones that have kind of filtered down to be the core group to get legislation passed and some other things. I have a column in the local Fountain newspaper whenever I need to get information out. And I also use it as a historical document too, because that paper's been in business over 60 years and we have to get things in print. And I'm a little bit like Leslie Knope. I have 7 binders now of artifacts from this. And
Yep.
So
sign up sheets, like I've saved everything because I was like, this is a community action that has happened. Because I also look at it, this is going to be our last intentional contamination, last one. Because the bills that I'm working on and things that I'm doing, I keep saying, this is bigger than PFAS. This is, you're not going to contaminate this community anymore. So I'm an advocate for getting a hospital built here. And one way to do it is just talk to every single person. Did you know? And here's a map. And you know, I've got a picture of the map of just the disparity. And they're like, oh, you have, you know, Fort Carson Hospital. And I was like, no, I don't. Like, there's a thing called a guard shack and guns.
yeah, that's
I can't get on there.
That's not. So can you so let's break this down a little bit more, because I don't think people understand, even me to an extent, I don't understand what the problem is with PFAS and why that is such a big deal, especially down there where for years they had all these intentional leakages of this firefighting foam that's affected, that it's like we didn't know it was bad, but why is it bad? Why is it a big deal? Is there something that can be done about it? I guess filtering is the way, I guess. Yeah. Yeah,
and it's a forever chemical. Like, it doesn't break down. That's what's so crazy about this. I want everybody to watch the movie Dark Waters. Okay.
Dark Waters.
Dark Waters. And then there's a documentary called The Devil We Know.
Yep.
You can watch them in either order. It doesn't really matter. So let me bring it down to the cellular level, and then I'll kind of tell you how it happens. We had one of the top CDC people, I think he's like second, I can't remember his name right now, but he came in November of 2019. And we met at the VFW because it was a really important meeting, and I wanted the veterans to overhear what we were talking about, right? So we're in the main group, the main part of the Fountain VFW. And, you know, gosh, I'd been doing it for 3 years, like from November 2016 to like November of 2019. And I always raise my hand and I'm like, I've been doing this for 3 years. I still don't understand how PFAS, what does it do in my body? I don't understand. I know it's bad. I know it's, you know, bioaccumulative. I know like that means it stays in my body, but how does this happen? Yep. So the CDC guy, like, I love this question. Like, your cell, and I love doing this to people now too, because they're like, oh my gosh, it's been forever since science class, right? So here's your cell. Your cell's goal in your body is,
if you're listening, Liz is doing a C.
Yep. If you're listening, I've got a C. Okay. So, and your cell is looking to become complete and round. And it's looking for a protein, a good protein to attach to. So as soon as it finds a protein, so I'm bringing up my finger to make a circle to the C, and it finds a protein, and now it's a happy cell. And this happy cell goes into your kidneys. It filters your kidneys like, oh, look at that pretty little cell, and it kicks it back into our body. PFAS is a jerk.
Oh, I understand jerks.
It pretends to be a protein. Rude on our cell. Rude. So rude. So then it goes into our kidney, and our kidney's like, oh, look at that cell. That's a great cell. Kicks it back into our body. It's bioaccumulating. Now, all of our organs are trying to use a cell with a protein, and it's PFAS. So it could take years or decades, you know, or months or days for something in our system to go wrong because our body's trying to use that cell with a protein, but it's a PFAS. It's bioaccumulating. Our kidney keeps kicking it back into our body. So it causes things like liver damage. Happened to my husband. Kidney disease, where you could die from kidney cancer. And unfortunately, that has happened so much in our community. Thyroid disease, autoimmune diseases, and there's like 600 of those. Ulcerative colitis. For children, it's asthma. When you're pregnant, it's preeclampsia. Or early term or underweight babies. So yeah, our water has been filtered since 2016, but our blood levels before that are so contaminated that it takes a long time for the rest of that cell to kind of break down to go through our urine. That's how it comes out.
And get it out of there.
So, yeah. So in about I think it was 1997, the Air Force, the DoD, Department of Defense, knew that these chemicals were bad. And they put out a memorandum, and somebody in our coalition, Mark Favors, who is a retired Army nurse now living in New York, he found the memorandum and we presented it to the EPA in 2018 when they came to visit. And we said, okay, Fort Carson stopped using these chemicals because the DoD said stop. Why didn't Peterson Air Force Base stop? Well, because it said to stop using military installations. So this is where chemical companies, DoD, everybody starts playing semantics. It's really interesting.
Oh, God.
I find it like, what the hell?
Oh,
like, you know
God.
what I mean? I had a teenage son. I know what you're saying in your head. You know what I mean when what I'm saying. And let's just all make this happen. We've had teenagers, right?
Yep.
I was really good at the semantics right off because I've had teenagers. And
or if you just dabble with politics even slightly, it's like, well, the letter of the law is
I think
this.
teenagers have politicians.
Ah!
I'm sorry, I do politics all the time.
They are.
I think teenagers are savage with the semantics.
They are.
Like you look at them and they're reprocessing. Like they have mad thesaurus skills in their brain. Right?
It's like, boom. You said,
didn't say this,
Yes.
but you didn't say blah 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 blah.
and I'm going to call it something else. So therefore, that is what all of these chemical manufacturers do, and the DoD. So Peterson Air Force Base sits on Colorado Springs property. The DoD pays rent to Colorado Springs to have the military installation there. They also share the airport, which is FAA. So it's not a DoD installation.
Oh,
It's
my
FAA.
God.
It's different rules. Let's keep going. And then to dump the holding tanks, the DoD Air Force, got special permits from Colorado Springs Utilities to dump it a couple of times a year since the 1970s. And if you remember back to 2016, when this huge announcement was made, there was a 10,000 gallon holding tank that somebody accidentally drained.
So Colorado Springs Utilities didn't even know about PFAS or anything like that. They're just like, just do it. This is regular regulatory stuff. And what was going on in the DoD wasn't disseminating out to civilian entities to be watching for this.
Right.
That's just
and
people. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I think some of the worst stuff that I've heard of, at least if you're in the military, you're wearing some sort of protective gear. You've seen those pictures. But I think some of the really sad things that the chemical manufacturers did with lying to people and say it's a surfactant like soap, is that small fire districts would spray this out for 4th of July celebrations and let kids play in it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's bounce around a little bit because you ran for county commissioner. And this was 2020?
2016. And then I ran for House District 21 because county commissioners follow laws that are made by elected officials as a state representative or a state senator. So I'm like, and everyone was like, okay, we clearly need laws. Will you run for House District 21? I was like, okay.
Yeah. So
twice.
Yeah.
That's when you're like, hey, let me get into politics and start getting into this process in that.
Right.
And then,
but even though I didn't win, I got 6 laws passed.
Hey, there you go. And I know you're regularly up in Denver, going up and talking to legislators and meeting with people. And
I've got my favorite place to park. I know all the good potty spots on the way up there.
Castle
Rock. Got a routine.
Yeah, you got everything in there. So
this last time I testified was to ban PFAS in consumer goods because it is coating our food wrappers. So that's going to be banned by 2024. And I brought water from my tap here, Wigwam Water District. And did you see the video where the Republicans laughed at me when I said, do you want to drink my tap water that's contaminated? I'd just given them the report. They didn't seem to care. So I poured it in their drinking water dispenser, and they were all like, no. What are they going to do? Arrest me?
Yeah.
No.
That's
I mean, who's going to be arrested for contaminating my water? I'm just sharing. And I at least told you ahead of time it was contaminated.
Yeah. I gave you the heads up, and then they can
I
do
gave
something
you the heads
about
up.
it.
I gave you the report. You didn't fucking care. You didn't care.
Oh, you're fine.
You're fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So you don't fucking care, right? Even the person who is elected to House District 21 here pulled out ski wax, and they tried reclassifying the science of PFAS. And like last week, I got some emails like the chemical manufacturers are trying to reclassify PFAS so they can play semantics with it and call it something else. And thank God we have a majority of progressives in the state house, and they didn't let her do that.
Yeah, good.
So
Yeah,
what?
And that's the really crappy thing about all of it is they know that this is dangerous. They know that this causes sometimes irreversible, there's irreversible consequences to human beings. And like, oh, well, okay, people don't like this word, so we're going to change the name. That's all we're changing is the name.
Right.
And so then they'll be okay with it, right?
Right. They were using the term aqueous film forming foam. I've been doing this for 6 years. Can't freaking say that without thinking.
Yep.
So you know what we called it? Toxic firefighting foam.
Exactly.
That makes it a lot more sense. So was it the feds that provided filters initially? Like you got involved, and it's like, yeah.
Like our water districts were amazing. They switch water sources like right away. Amazing job with municipalities here. But the rural areas that are smaller, that don't have like a city council and things like that.
Yeah.
It makes it tougher, right? Like where I live, it's a well. It's really small. We are downstream, but we don't have like the oversight. We have a county commissioner who's Republican. We've had all county commissioner Republicans since 1972. So we're seriously lacking diversity, first of all. And so, I mean, you got to call it out like how it is. So the municipalities changed right away, but then the DOD said, after millions of dollars are spent doing this, like one GAC carbon activated filter is $100,000. So Security Water District is suing the DOD for like $10 million because the DOD said, oh, you did it before the time that we designated as a date. So we're only going to pay from, like you did it in we'll just throw a day out. You did it in January, but we didn't state until July. So you're not going to get paid for that.
Oh, that's a load of crap.
Right?
Yeah, that's how they clear their books.
That's how they, And get a load of this. So there's a new water filtration plant built 2 years ago off of Wageman. And it's not online yet because there's a lot of sediment in the lines built by Army Corps of Engineers. And so the DOD paid for the building and everything, but not the additional portion needed to test the water or for bathrooms for the workers. So
the important things.
Yeah.
So
and Strathmore wasn't contaminated enough, so they're not paying for that one at all.
So I know that the water kind of drifted down south there, but are there areas of like Colorado Springs in that are also primarily because Peterson sits on Colorado Springs area, but are there areas up here that need to be concerned about that too? Or did it kind of all come downstream?
As far as we can tell, no, because the Colorado Springs water is coming from reservoirs more north. So it's the water that gets into the groundwater that gets into the aquifer south of there. And people on Peterson Air Force Base get Colorado Springs utilities water.
From all those reservoirs and stuff out there, from the hills. One
of the main reasons Venatucci Farm shut down is because of water rights. Security Water District was paying $250,000 a year for the water rights that Venatucci Farm had. And because it's so contaminated, Security is now getting their water from Colorado Springs utilities until that the sediment can be worked through that line, the lines of the thing that was built 2 years ago. So that's one of the reasons it shut down. And plus, it was an organic farm. Well, it's not organic anymore because the soil is contaminated. The water that they were using to irrigate crops contaminated. So that's really sad. Susan Gordon was instrumental in getting the coalition started. She brought in monthly speakers that, you know, really set the tone for the coalition. We always had somebody coming and presenting, teaching us, or when we had the EPA went to 5 places. So we made sure they came here. And then at that stakeholder meeting, I made sure to ask, I need a liaison from EPA 8. That's the region we're in. And sure enough, I got 2 people and they came to every single meeting for 2 years. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got the filter plant that's not online. What do you know what the timeline is on that, or is that kind of okay? Do you have
no idea? It's really sad. Like, here we have these brilliant people building this and designing it, and like they know what they're doing, but this is stumping them.
And so you're having to rely on Colorado Springs CSU water. And
This is another kicker. So dumb. So Colorado Springs Utilities is charging us upcharge to security to use their water.
Yep.
And the Air Force is only paying that surcharge.
Oh, thank you, Air Force.
Nice, everybody.
Yeah, no, it's the water rights that we have.
Levels of fuckery here is just insane.
Exactly. It's because the way that the water rights are broken down here in the Springs and in Colorado, pretty much in general, are fucking insane. They are insane. It's like, no, you know, yes, we have this reservoir 5 feet away from your house, but we're going to bring your water from 600 miles this way. Don't touch that water. That's not for you.
It is so complicated. I can't even like wrap my head around it. It is.
No. Oh no, it is. It's absolutely. I don't understand. I look at it and I'm like, I don't. Why?
Yeah.
Why do we have to do it
in 5 minutes?
way?
An oil pipeline is going to get built. Or fracking is going to happen, but you need water?
Yeah. Fuck you.
Go buy it at the grocery store like
go to
everybody else.
Costco. They got them by the pallet.
Our recent bill did ban oil and gas companies from putting PFAS in their fracking water. Were they mad at those committee meetings?
I bet.
And they brought up China. Well, that's just going to give away our recipe. And then, you know, China's going to get it. We're all sitting there like, can we just have clean water?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sorry. I don't think that it's a, you know, so China gets your fracking water recipe. What does that matter?
Like at all? This giant guy with this apron, and he's got a big
your humans?
pot.
Yeah, no thanks. We're gonna pass on that.
And my daddy gave me this secret water fracking recipe with 31 spices. I can't give it to the China. I just can't do it.
No.
I was laughing so hard. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, these corporations they're
or the Teflon pan guy.
Yes.
But Teflon is great for people, and then your eggs don't stick. And I'm like, when I got to testify, I was like, I'm okay if my eggs stick to the pan a little bit so I don't die from fucking cancer.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Now, one thing down in
I'm
Fountain...
going to buy ceramic, or
You'll live.
You stop? Can you label it? So then the Republican candidate, Bradfield, pulled that from the bill too. So then we pushed back and said, well, they have to at least label the pan on the pan, not the wrapping, because that can come off. And then one of the other people who testified, she made a good point. She's like, I buy pans from Goodwill sometimes.
Yep.
I want that label on the pan and not the wrapping.
Yeah.
wrapping.
Yeah, exactly. That's as someone who's worked at Goodwill and had to process that stuff. Like, yeah, all that packaging is long gone by the time
yeah.
it hits websites and stuff like that. Now, one thing.
Oh, and then the guy was like, "Don't superheat your pan."
Oh.
We're all like, "I'm sorry, we all burn a grilled cheese at least once in our lifetime."
Yep. Yep.
Now, one big thing in Fountain is development, and it's a big thing here. And last time I was in Fountain, because like Fountain's so small, but then it's just sprawl. It's just single family housing out to the horizon, and it's a lot of it.
We're really good in Southern Colorado about the sprawl.
Yeah, about endless amounts of housing.
So it's called rural Fountain, but Fountain City is pretty like 30,000 people live there. They're keeping their property lines pretty good, except for that one development that they annexed in, and now they don't have enough water. And then developers are like, well, to be honest, the developers have had 20 years to freaking do something.
No, it's not. It's not convenient because they're trying to get annexed back into Colorado Springs, like de-annexed from Fountain, so that they can get annexed into Colorado Springs, so that they can get the water there.
And then it's just like these little neighborhoods, but 6 miles from Colorado Springs. Like, that's not going to work. How are we going to do law enforcement with that?
Yeah. Firefighting and stuff like that.
Firefighting, law enforcement, parks, roads. Like, none of it makes sense. Just slow your roll.
Yeah.
Like, give it another 3 or 4 years to figure it out. They've already waited 20 years. Honestly. Who freaking cares?
Yeah.
They're going to come in like the rest of the new Fountain builds from 10 years ago and put asphalt on the dirt, not road base, and fuck all that anyways. So what if they have to wait another 3 years? It's already been 20. They're going to be fine.
Yeah. There's the developers want what they want, and they want it now. Like the whole powers thing with the interchanges and stuff like that. But that whole thing is pretty controversial because it's like they painted themselves into a corner. They want to sell all these homes. They want to build and sell all these homes, and they want Colorado Springs taxpayers to cover all that ahead of you guys being able to get the filtering done down there. And it's fantastic. That's great. And we're already spread thin up here anyway.
To fix what we have going on. Exactly. Just slow your roll. Fountain is working on building a new power substation, for electricity. They really needed to get that done. There's some infrastructure things that need to happen before you just throw in some new houses.
Yeah, because is that owned by the
infrastructure? Why?
Yeah, is the Fountain Power owned the utility? Is that like city owned?
Yes.
Okay, it's like
so
the same
all
council.
of like Fountain Water, Fountain Utilities, they report to the Fountain City Council, and we have Deetra Duncan on there as a progressive. So I love that she's on there. And so like Colorado's, if you have a city council, like the utilities report to the city council.
Right. And in a case
so that's where it's difficult when you're more rural, where there's not really a reporting agent. Like, who are you going to talk to?
Yeah, because it all just it's kind of a hand-me-down thing.
There's a board of directors, like our Wigwam Water District. There's a board of directors. The next meeting is September 1st. I've lived here for 4 years, and I've tried to go to the meetings, but they're all the way off Powers is the main office, and that's like a 20-mile drive, and I've missed a couple of them because of snow. So
snow happens here still, which I don't know. If we wait a couple more years, we won't have to worry about snow anymore. We're just not going to have to worry about water at all. Are there concerns there about supply, about water, just like the amount of water coming through, especially with all the development that we're getting and the fact that now Fountain, until that starts coming in, like getting water in there at all?
For our area, I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know. Ours is like a well, like an aquifer well.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
That'll be an interesting question because that's what everyone's concerned about with all the subdivisions that they're building out towards Peyton and Falcon and all that fun stuff, that they're just like, here's 20 square miles of 80 homes. It's going to be a freaking mess here in a bit.
The longer that I've done this water stuff and the more meetings that I'm in, I think it would be really cool if we had a better education system. Like when we first moved here in 2000, we're from Iowa. You put something in the ground and it grows.
Yeah.
You know, right. And since then, you know, like where we live here, I'm like, do we really need to plant that? Like,
Yeah.
we need some trees, but what kind of trees? But we've lived here for 22 years. So I kind of have an understanding of native species or whatever. But if you're military and you move all over the place, you kind of want to like, hey, remember this plant from this duty station I was at? It was really cool. It's just, you know, a broader, and we're adults, right? So now we can have a place of context to our education where, you know, we're kids and we learn something in 5th grade and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's deciduous trees. Evergreens.
Every time an adult says, I wasn't taught that in school, I'm like, well, you know, there's like 10,000 years of human history and were you paying attention that day?
Is it?
Yeah. I wanted to bring
enough for breakfast. Like there's a lot of it. Like stop blaming teachers all the time. We're adults now. You learn how to read until 4th grade. And then at 4th grade, you read to learn things. So we've had more opportunities to read things, to learn things. I think the onus is on us to learn something.
Yeah. I wanted to bring this back around.
3rd grade. I don't know. Did I even remember when I could tie my shoe?
Yeah. I forgot at least once. Emily, you're...
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to bring this back around real quick and touch on, so Liz, with your recent health happy fun time, I know that you had said that there were some complications with that because of the PFAS that you have in your system.
Right. So I had to have emergency surgery. Like, you know, like I said, that PFAS kind of builds up and it's not, oh, it hasn't happened to me. It's if and when, right? And then the type of surgery I had is so rare for somebody my age and health, right? So my colon all of a sudden turned.
Yep.
Weird. So I got most of that removed, some of my large intestine and my appendix. And just everything was so weird about that. And living where I do, it took a while for the ambulance to come out here and then all the way to Memorial Hospital.
Yeah.
Emergency surgery, a week in the hospital, and then, 12 weeks of recovery. But, whenever someone says, hey, I don't know why that happened to me, I'm like, where do you live? How did you live there? Where did you grow up? It's PFAS. And I can't stress it enough. If you were a military kid and you grew up around any Air Force base, you drank the water. Yes. From the late 1970s until about 2016. Your health is affected. And especially if you were a little kid, because that's when it's, think about how quickly you grow from an infant to age 4.
Yeah.
Huge. Your mental, everything you're learning and growing and your bones are forming.
Oh yeah.
So, and if your body is contaminated with, a chemical pretending to be a protein on most of your cells, it affects everything. And even decades later, you're like, God, it's so weird. So-and-so got cancer. I'm like, where'd they live?
Yep.
That's an interesting.
As these studies are coming out, we're going to learn more about it. We've got a health study going on here in this community. So if you live in the Fountain Valley areas from Stratmore, Widefield, Security, in the rural areas around that, we've got a health study, and there are only 8 places in the United States were selected for this. So I tell people it's like a huge crime happened here. You are walking evidence. All you have to do is go in and donate your blood.
Did you live in Security Fountain? You may be entitled to compensation from the federal government. That's actually a really good question.
That's going on too, and that got turned into a national litigation thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so if you watch the movie Dark Waters, and Rob Bilott and Taft Law Firm is the law firm that is doing this national litigation, and then McDivitt, our local guy, is facilitating that.
So I'm curious because I grew up on military bases. I mean, you came from Iowa. I lived on Offutt, out there in Omaha, and so I don't. I grew up in West Germany. I was born and grew up in West Germany. I lived on Offutt. I lived on Keesler and Biloxi. So now I'm like, oh.
I have been talking about you at like every single health study thing that I go to. National Institute of Health. I talked about that. And I said the most underrepresented group of people are military kids.
Yeah.
Because if you're military and a veteran, you could eventually get compensation through the VA and healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were a military kid or a military spouse, you got nothing.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't even know. I feel fine now, but who knows where that's gonna be in a couple decades?
Diabetes, autoimmune disease, or you think you're fine, but we don't have the healthcare system where we just kind of suck it up and go on and be like, I kind of feel okay. I'll be all right.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Bones heal.
Just a scratch.
It's fine. So what do you have? Do you have like discrete actions you're going forward, legislation that you're trying to get going at the moment? Is there do you have a timetable of action as a water warrior, or is it kind of like, well, this is what the fight we have today?
I think that's like half of it. This is the fight we have today, and then something else pops up and we're like, are you kidding me? Why do we have to keep doing this? Stop.
Is there legislation that we should look out for?
National level,
yeah,
I'm pretty impressed with the Biden administration. EPA has dropped the advisory for 2 of them. There's like 12,000 different chemicals, but 2 of them.
Yeah.
Mostly because of Rob Blatt's health study in West Virginia in the movie Dark Waters. They tested 65,000 people. It took 7 years to get, right? So that's why here we're kind of like, why do we have to keep testing? Like, we know.
Yeah.
And I think for us, we need medical monitoring, which means everybody who lives in these areas, especially military people like you, Nick, military kids, if we need the chemical companies who have more money than the god and goddesses to pay for medical monitoring. Like, these are the 6 main health issues. So there needs to be a clinic here in the Fountain Valley area for you to go to. Whether you lived here at this time or not, like Nick, you ought to be able to come here and be like, hey, I was a military kid. I grew up around airport. Can I get my blood tested? Can I know what my PFAS levels are?
Yep.
And then if they're above 5, I don't know, I'm throwing that number out there. Like, mine are 20. The average American is like 1.3. Mine is 20. Dan is 30.
Jesus.
So once you get to a certain level in your blood, then the chemical manufacturers need to pay for that testing. You know how you get medical insurance, or if you have health insurance, an ACA plan, you have well-being visits and they test your blood, all these preventative things. You get to a certain age, you get breast exams or prostate exams. They squish you.
Yes.
This is something we should all have at this point, and then have an understanding. If your levels are above whatever for PFAS blood levels, then you should be uber aware of getting, certain tests done ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Make
that's
100%.
Companies pay for it.
That's not part of any standard battery of blood testing, because I had an extensive battery of testing a couple years ago, but I don't know if even PFAS even comes as part of that.
Yeah, if that popped up in your what do they call it? Your
it's a special test, and I think there's like five companies that can do that.
Gotcha.
So I mean, we have to, it's like supply and demand. We need more companies that are able to do that type of testing.
Yeah.
100%.
You can prick your finger and know what your sugar levels are.
Yeah.
It used to be a lot more complicated than that.
Yep.
7 vials of blood to determine your sugar levels. Yes.
Well, it's funny because you get 7 vials of blood drawn for this PFAS study. So I love that you said 7.
I would just take my blood.
Nick's
I'm not using it.
And Nick's like, no, I think maybe I don't want to have that done now. Thanks. Bye.
As long as I don't look at it. Tattoos and blood drawing, I don't look at it. I just know it's happening, and that's okay with me. Emily, did you have any questions or things we didn't get into?
No, listen, I really wanted to, I'm glad that Liz, I know I'm off camera right now.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that Liz, here's my hand.
Yeah. Hi,
Like,
I'm Emily.
it's
How
like
are
saying-
you?
Well, it's a hand and a boob.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
that's mostly me anyway.
Water
Good
rights.
Lord.
But no, so I did want to touch on the difficulties that you had because of PFAS and your health scare. Because I know there are several people that I went to high school with. Now, understand, I'm not 50 yet. I won't be 50 until this year, and I'm one of the older people in my class. There have been in my graduating class of like 300 and something. There's almost 120 people that I went to school with that have been diagnosed with MS.
I would say it's got to be something environmental.
Yeah, well, and that's so I look at these things. I'm like, what? Because these are people I went to elementary school with, or I went to middle school with, and then went to high school with, and I'm like 120 out of 300 and some kids that have been diagnosed with and live every day with MS.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some people that have come up with weird cancers where they're sitting there going, what? How do you're in your 30s, your 40s. How did this doesn't happen with people this age. This doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So anyone listening that went to Mitchell High School in the late 80s and early 90s, maybe go get something tested, because I think it was built on an ancient Indian burial ground or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it's
and
a
Liz,
lot.
I did want to, because you did bring
really
up
interesting. I know Southeast Colorado Springs has been built on a old landfill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why the roads are so, like Hancock and South Academy, that's why the roads are always weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a gut instinct that you're
Mhm.
probably right.
Oh yeah, no, we've talked about it. The few people that I'm still in touch with from high school, because you go to your reunion and you remember, oh, I loved you, and then you friend them on Facebook and you're
Get
like,
older
oh
and
no,
you're like, everything hurts.
yeah,
Yeah, everything's bad. Now,
But yeah,
you brought up EPA actually under Biden, and I was curious, like, that couldn't have been easy under Trump's EPA, especially since it started in 2016, and you're really starting to get traction.
Like in 2018, there was a big PFAS report that was supposed to come out,
Yep.
and the Trump EPA held it for like a week.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We were so like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, the joys of that whole shit show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Liz,
it was a complete shit show.
yeah. Well, Liz, thank you so much. This is something that we've, especially with Emily bringing up with all these chemical issues that, we introduced so many new chemicals through mid-century, last century, that we didn't know the long-term effectiveness or detriment of, and sometimes we actually did find out and then we didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Or it's like, it doesn't actually apply to us because we're in a different jurisdiction, so we didn't need to actually report it to them. So whatever.
Yeah, we don't need to tell people.
But unfortunately, it's like it's affecting livelihoods, including yours and potentially mine and tons of other people. So it's awesome that you're a water warrior for people there. Are you going to run for legislation again, or gonna run for mayor?
I'm taking a little break right now. I'm running Tony Exum's campaign because we need him in Senate. He finished 4 terms as a state rep, and he was instrumental in getting these 6 bills passed because he's a retired firefighter of 35 years. So he knows the importance just to firefighters, right, that have had to use these foams.
Oh yeah.
And their turnout gear, the stuff that they wear is coated with water repellent and fire retardant stuff. So their health is already compromised. Just trying to save our lives, and building materials, like, wow. Like, and then on top of that,
stuff.
just all the toxic stuff, and that's another program. These poor firefighters. But and another shout out to water district managers and people who work with that. The basis of our water districts is to make sure we don't die of cholera, which is fecal matter in our drinking water. And then everything gets built to that. And every year they're having to test for something else. And it's an easy answer. If you're an industry, whatever you're doing on that little plot of land stays there. It doesn't go into wastewater, filter it, keep it right there. And you have to prove that there's a safe disposal of that product. And, Clean Air, Clean Water Acts doesn't mean you bury it in the soil, because we don't have a Clean Soil Act. That's what they did. Played semantics.
Yep.
Is there anything that we didn't get to touch on that if you're going to let our listeners here at Binlow know about water?
Oh, gosh. Not much. My dog is going to go run. Hold on one sec.
Great.
Henry, come here. Neighbor's on a tractor, and he's very intrigued right now.
Oh.
Well, I guess that's it, because I got to go chase a wiener dog named Henry Jones Jr.
Liz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Bye.
Go chase a wiener dog.
Gotta go chase a wiener dog.
Go chase a wiener dog.
Bye.
Yeah, what did I tell you? That was a great interview with Liz.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I hope she got her wiener dog.
Catch the puppy.
Yeah, I learned so much about that process, because I've been listening to kind of contemporary to when it happened, like 2018, Little London show. Yeah. Back when Darcy had an interview with one of the, I guess, fountain people, officiants down there, about the whole PFAS. I remember when it broke and Peterson, and just like, holy crap, this is a big freaking nightmare for the Fountain Valley. And so that's a very interesting struggle, especially as our system is looking to buckle here in the next bit.
Yes.
Even with SDS about that, and you got to learn about water.
Yeah,
we were hesitant to learn about water, but
and I definitely recommend listen to us in podcast form, but then go check out the YouTube video. Liz does this whole explanation thing, and you really need to see it to kind of understand what's happening.
Yeah, we did. I think we did a pretty good job describing it, but seeing it, I think it really just you get it more. So
100%.
So yeah, fantastic. Glad we were able to sit down with her. Emily, any last words?
Nope.
Let's get us out of here then.
All right.
Yeah.
Don't know how to talk anymore. I lost it. It's gone. Badly Needed and Long Overdue is a podcast about shaking things up in a conservative city. This show is hosted by Nick Raven and Emily Lewis. You can watch the video version of this on YouTube and listen to us in podcast form anywhere you find podcasts. Anywhere. If it says podcast, we're on there. Our theme music is by the Knockblockers, who's a local ska band. Very awesome. Highly recommend you go find them on social media. And they are still playing live in some places. Currently in the Springs. I definitely should go check them out. They're a lot of fun. You can reach us in a whole bunch of different social media platforms as well. On Instagram, Badly Needed Podcast. On Twitter, at Badly Needed COS, capital COS. On Facebook, at Badly Needed and Long Overdue Podcasts. And on TikTok, which, if we still don't have any content, it's fine. At Badly Needed Podcast. We will eventually have TikTok, especially since Nick continues to tell me that's apparently my job.
Apparently.
So we will eventually have some TikTok content. But go find us anyway and follow us so you're first to know when we have content.
Absolutely.
All right, Nick.
Thank you, Emily. We are Badly Needed and Long Overdue, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Ah, no. Ah.